Week 3, Jags versus Texans. To me, this is the biggest game of the year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have the Trevor Lawrence revenge game after what happened last year, and we have Liam Cohen's biggest test as the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars after that Week 2 loss to the Bengals. Let's find out what happens. Let's get started. Welcome back to Jags Japan. This is our Week 3 preview. I went to a deep dive analysis of our Week 2 loss, of what happened, how the heck did we lose that game. That was just a crazy experience, something we're not used to as Jags fans, being that close and having so many things to point at on how did we lose that game. Jags are 1-1, kind of where we thought we would be so far. What we didn't think would be the case is the state of the AFC South right now. To recap kind of the Week 2, we'll recap the AFC South first, and then we'll go into kind of this Texans and Jaguars matchup deep dive, because I think it's good to kind of set the stage, set the context of what's going on around the division. I'm not going to go into all the games in the NFL. I'm just going to focus strictly on the Jags and the AFC South, because the division race is obviously the most important thing of the year so far. So let's recap Week 2 results of the Titans, Colts, and Texans. The Titans lose to the Rams. Stafford and the Rams look pretty awesome, and I think the Titans are just not a very good team, obviously, like we all thought. But Cam Ward does look pretty good, and I really think they have something special with him. He still continues to take like really bad sacks, and he'll learn that he's a rookie, but some of the throws he makes and stuff kind of scares me. It's like, dang, it's kind of it reminds me a little bit of like Trevor early on, where yeah, he made a lot of mistakes, but some of the ropes that he would throw just got me like, really excited about the future. And I'm sure, and I think Titans fans should be excited about Cam Ward, unfortunately. The Colts continue to surprise me. Daniel Jones looks pretty good. I mean, he's wearing that number 17 in the white and blue. It almost looks like Josh Allen out there. I'm not going to go like that far that he's like as good as Josh Allen, but he definitely looks like a whole new quarterback on a decent Colts team, which, I thought the Colts, not going to lie, I thought they were going to suck this year. I didn't know what was going on. I thought Chris Ballard is just the most overrated GM of all time, with how much love he gets, and like they haven't done anything. Daniel Jones is kind of saving his butt here. The coaching, the weapons on offense, they just keep making plays. They did get incredibly lucky to pull out that win at home. I don't know if you guys saw that, but Denver missed a 40-yard field goal to win the game, and then Indy would have lost if it weren't for a leverage penalty on the Broncos, as they missed a 60-yarder to lose the game. But then because they got the 15-yard penalty, they moved it to a 45-yard field goal, and then they won the game on that. So crazy that they ended up winning that game. But they got some magic right now. They do have a pretty soft schedule, and they started out their first 2 weeks at home, which is always a crazy advantage. So they're going to be a lot better than I thought, and I think this could become a pretty tight race. The Texans lose a heartbreaker on Monday Night Football against the Bucs. Huge loss for the Texans. They got away with so many mistakes in that game, and they got really lucky. They got like a punt block to set them up in amazing field goal range, or actually they ended up getting stopped on 4th down, I think, on that drive. And then, the 2-minute drill to lose to a really clutch Bucs team. CJ Stroud had a few good throws, a few good moments, but he still takes just some terrible sacks and got away with a horrible pick. Levante David had it. He threw it right to him. It was just right there, right in his hands, and that would change the whole narrative of the game and probably would have sealed an easy victory for the Bucs early on. But Texans still lose, drops to 0-2, which makes this game even bigger, in my opinion, which I thought it was already the biggest game of the year, but you have a chance right now to bury the Texans early on in the year. So we'll get into that later, but what do the standings look like heading into Week 3? Colts on top on 2-0, Jags at 1-1, and Titans and Texans both at 0-2, just as we all predicted. And given, the hot start, and the Colts are probably going to go 3-0 next week against the Titans, it's very important for, I think, the Jags to kind of set the tone, get a division win at home early. It's going to be a tight race, and I think getting wins at home is huge. Whoever wins this game if the Jaguars win this game, they can have the ability to take control of the division later on in the year. A win at home against the Texans obviously set up for a sweep later on in the year. And the Jaguars have 5 division games in their last 10. You get an early division win on this game in week 3. I don't think they have another division game until I think week 9 or week 7 or 8 or 9 against the Texans later in the year. But that's really important for the Jags to get a win early, especially against the hated Texans at home early on. And it's like, if the Texans fall to 0-3, you could almost write them off, as the odds to make the playoffs are extremely low at 0-3. I mean, they fall off tremendously. 0-2 is already a bad hole. I think it's something like, maybe 5 to 10%, but you go 0-3, it's like a 3% chance to make the playoffs. Along with the Colts, like I said, probably going 3-0 against the Titans this week. There's not much room for error here. On the other hand, if the Jags do lose, it could set up for the Colts to really kind of be in the driver's seat for the division with a really easy schedule down the road and an early division win. But that's the AFC South. It's going to be a little tighter race than we thought. I thought it was only going to be Jags Texans this year. We're looking like it might be Jags Texans battling it out. And meanwhile, the Colts are coasting an easy schedule and a refreshed team to number 1 in the AFC South. But we'll see about that. All right, let's get into this Texans matchup. Why is this the biggest game of the year for me? Even when the schedule came out, I circled this one and I was like, we're ready for this. Honestly, since the week 12 debacle last year when Trevor got hurt and the cheap shot heard around America happened, since that game last year, because the Jags season was over at that point, I was looking forward to next year Texans at home. And I said, no matter what, who's the coach, who's on the team, we need to win that game. We need to say that, hey, that's not okay what you did. What happened last year, and really need to go out for some revenge. Also, the Texans have dominated the division the last 2 years. I think getting one up on them early is huge. But like I said, we all know why this is really bigger, and that is the Trevor Lawrence revenge game coming back against the team that knocked him out last year. He's already made a few comments, a few kind of like sly comments like, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to all the division games, but especially that one early on in the year. And there's no other ones he could have been talking about because the rest of the Jags division games are like in the last 9-10 weeks of the season. But he may not say, he's probably going to play it cool this week, but he wants this one, and so does the rest of the fans. We're even wearing our throwback jerseys for this game, which I think is awesome. That just gives like a little extra juice on the field. To me, is not really the question if Trevor is ready for this game and ready to ball out, but does Liam Cohen also understand the significance of this game for Jags fans, for Trevor, for the entire organization? Though he wasn't there for it, he had to have seen what happened in that game. And I wonder if maybe he has a little extra blocking for Azeez Al-Shaair on a few of these run plays. I'm not saying let's hurt him or anything. I'm just saying that let's just show a little bit more physicality that last year wasn't okay. And kind of like almost like an unwritten rule, kind of like in baseball. Say what you will, but it happens. You beam our best player, or you take one of our players out of the game. Well, when your best player is coming up on the lineup next inning, he's getting beamed. Just that's how it works. It's kind of the unwritten rule. So, in my opinion, what the Texans did to us last year was disrespectful. I know the Jags were already out of it, but like a dirty hit like that on our franchise quarterback, and then to double down and say it wasn't dirty, or that, oh, Trevor should have slid earlier. I mean, DeMeco Ryans, like, lost all respect for him. I thought, he's a pretty decent coach, probably a pretty decent guy. But, like, saying that, okay, I get he's, like, sticking up for his players, but to just say, like, oh, that was Trevor's fault for getting knocked out. That was Trevor's fault that Azeez Al-Shaair had to ram his elbow into his face mask and caused him to get a huge concussion. Yeah, that was Trevor's fault. Yeah, I mean, it was a bang play, but like as a defensive player, you got to be aware of that. And even if you hit him, you don't drive your elbow into his head. Like that's what's dirty about the play more than anything. For him to say something like that, I like to see what would have happened if CJ Stroud got hit like that in that game or any game. We all know what would have happened. We all would have known that the whole team would have got out and fought for him too. So, I'm just sick of DeMeco Ryans, and I'm sick of this Texans team gets all the love. Ever since DeMeco Ryans came into that Texans organization, CJ Stroud gets drafted. 2 years ago, they got so lucky with such an easy schedule and the Jaguars absolutely falling apart dramatically to win that division. Yes, they had great performances from CJ Stroud. Yes, they had a good defense. You take a look at the last half of that year, they didn't face a single team with a winning record, and they just coasted to that division win. And last year, gosh, they had a cakewalk of an AFC South. And they never beat a good team on the road. They had a few lucky wins against the Colts, or not the Colts, against the Bills early on. I remember that one specifically. But when did they ever have a signature win against a team, like on the road or even at home? They're the epitome of they beat the bad teams. They cakewalk over the teams that are supposed to be bad, like the whole AFC South division, and then they get killed by the good ones. And, to me, that just makes them average. And yeah, they've just coasted off an easy AFC South division. When you have 6 easy wins a year, it's easy to end up with a year 10-7, 11-6. But yeah, their defense is good, maybe even great. They also have the pleasure of, going up against ass offense 6 times a year usually. But things are changing this year. The AFC South is a lot better, and especially the Jags and Colts, they're coming for them. For the Texans starting out 0-2, they played, a tough Rams game on the road, and then Bucks at home Monday night. You got to win that one if you want to compete for the playoffs. You got to win that one. CJ Stroud kind of regressed pretty badly last year. People still think he's a top 10 quarterback. Obviously he had an amazing rookie year. Going to give him that. That was pretty awesome. But he looks like he's seeing ghosts out there. That offensive line is really, really struggling with him, and he'll take some bad sacks. He is like, he will never throw it out. He will never throw it away. He just he'll take a 10-step drop and then gets sacked for another 5 yards. And now it's like 2nd and 25. If the Jags can knock this team to 0-3, I really think with how competitive the Jags and Colts are and how tough their schedule is this year, the Texans schedule, they're not going to have it easy this season. And I think, it could lead to definitely a regression for a team that everyone had penciled in, had penned in, sharpied in, inked in. Texans winning the AFC South. I don't think this year, but we'll see. It's still an early year. Okay, all the emotional stuff out of the way, why the matchup is so big. Let's actually get into kind of the Jags offense and defense. I know I'm homering up this week, but this is maybe the one week where you'll see me, maybe the Titans too, but this is the one week where you'll see me full on Jaguars bandwagon. That's how I brought up the jersey, all that stuff. This is the one week. I'm usually pretty neutral, pretty fair to all the teams, but this Texans team just pisses me off sometimes, and especially what happened last year. Just want some revenge. All right, Jaguars offense versus Texans defense. Definitely the toughest task for the Liam Cohen and this offense yet. Like I said, the Texans defense is pretty solid across the board. There really isn't much of a weakness on their defense. Maybe you could say the interior D-line is aging a little bit, and the safeties aren't, the best. CJ Gardner-Johnson's a pretty good safety, but their nickel, Petrie, and who's their other safety? Kalen Bullock. Don't really know much about him. So I think, safeties and kind of an over-aggressive linebacking core, I think they can really attack. But I really think the interior D-line is the spot that the Jags can attack, I'm definitely looking for a heavy dose of Tootin and Etienne up the middle, and they have some pretty aggressive linebacker play. So you set up some good play action, with this team. You get the running backs going and set up play action. You can definitely get some big plays. Now the corners on the outside are definitely a tough task. Some of the best in the league, obviously, but the safeties can be picked on a little bit as well. So I know it's like we're all hoping for a BTJ comeback game, but this is kind of like one of the few games on the schedule where you're like, I don't know if he's going to be able to do it against this group, but we'll see about that. We'll see if BTJ's really got that dog in him, and see if he can actually go up and make a few plays. Obviously, the pass rushers for the Texans as well is going to be a huge test for Walker and Anton. Curious to see how they're going to fare against this group, but they've done really well so far against, last week with Hendrickson, and I know Stewart was out for a lot of the game, but Osai is a pretty good player too. They played pretty well against him. Besides, Hendrickson beat Walker Little badly on 2 plays, but besides that, they've been pretty well this year. But I really think Cohen is just going to draw up some stuff to mess with this defense. I think Cohen's going to be in his bag this week again. The Jags offense versus Texans defense, this definitely isn't the strength of the game. I'm kind of relying a lot on Trevor playing above and beyond what we've seen from him and making like a kind of a career game for them to really pull this one out, but we'll see. Flipping it over to the Jags defense versus Texans offense, and this is where I think the Jaguars can win the game. The Texans offensive line is a problem for them, and I expect even more what we saw from our Jags pass rushers and our defensive line against the Bengals last week. I mean, Joe Burrow was seeing ghosts last week, and this offensive line of the Texans is even worse than theirs. So, this is a game where Jaguars should put pressure on Stroud early and often. And then looking at their wide receivers, really other than Nico Collins, no one really scares me. I don't think Christian Kirk is going to be active for this game. I'm not sure. I hope he's not, because God forbid, you just know that if Christian Kirk's active, he's going to have a huge revenge game. You take out Nico Collins, make one of these rookie wide receivers beat you. That's kind of how I see it. Like I said, Stroud's been kind of off since last year. Kind of like what I talk about Trevor. Sometimes he just misses throws where I'm like, how do you miss that throw? Like, we all know you can make that throw. But I don't know if it's like the pass rush getting to him or the weak O line and he just sped up. But he'll airmail some throws or even dirt some throws. But so if the pass rush can get to Stroud early and get him shaken, then I think the Jags will be in a good position. Their run game with Chubb and probably no Dameon Pierce really isn't anything to worry about. I think obviously it's important to stop the run, and the Jags have done a great job at doing that so far. But if you stop the run and make them pretty one-dimensional, I think that's a great way to win this game as well. Now, their offensive coordinator is still kind of an unknown to me. I know he's kind of like from that Shanahan tree, so part of that scares me a little bit. So he could drop some stuff to kind of take us by surprise. But from what I saw from the Bucs game last night, nothing crazy. So I really think the defense has the clear advantage, and I think the advantage of the week, of the game, is this Jags defense versus Texans offense. Let's get into some keys of the game for the Jaguars. Establish the run game early and stick to it. I think attacking that interior D-line and slowing down the pass rushers on the edge and then hitting them with play action, I think that is going to be a huge key to this offense if they can get that run game going early and stick to it. Last week, like I said in my last video, I think we were a little pass happy, especially in the red zone. Stick to the run game and really, chew up some clock, beat them down physically. Another key to this game, BTJ. We've been talking about it and what's going on with him, but I think we need to get him involved often and early. Get some easy completions to start. Get his confidence back. Some screens, some reverses, something. Nothing over the middle right now. Maybe some out routes, a comeback, something that he's done a million times and, maybe won't make him so jittery to, get away from contact. But we really need him to be on if we want him to win this game and move forward with him as our number one wide receiver in the future, like we know he can be, like he did last year. I'd love to see them dial up a few splash plays for Travis Hunter. Like I said in my last video as well, where's Travis Hunter been? He's on the field a lot, but nothing stands out to me. I want to see him be special, be the unicorn, make some splash plays. Let's see if this guy can really be a game changer. Let's draw some plays up for him. But the key to the game for me, for the offensive side, is the offensive line. Protecting Trevor Lawrence against these pass rushers, and if it can continue its hot streak against a really, really good defense, if we can establish the run, set up play action for their very over-aggressive linebackers, and really, give Trevor the time and the presence to be able to get him the revenge that he deserves. If their O-line caves and has a bad week, I think this could really lead to a dud. And really the last thing we need is a bad game from Trevor at a time like this. It's a huge game, important game for him, for the whole team. He needs to show out and he needs to play great. Obviously good enough just to win the game, that's fine, but I would love to see him have a career game against the hated division rival and bury the Texans this week. Defensive keys for the Jags. I mean, it's kind of easy to see. We put pressure on Stroud early, and that kind of shakes their entire offense. So, get him shook, stuff the run, and I think you're setting yourself up for some pretty good success. Contain Nico Collins. Nothing else scares me in this offense but the connection of CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. You get them heated up, and watch out. So Tyson Campbell needs to be on his A game. I'd like to see some safety help over there as well. Try to lock him down, take him out of the game, and like I said, make someone else have to beat you. Don't let Nico Collins beat you. And I'd like to see this defense stay hot with turnovers. I mean, 6 turnovers in 2 weeks. What more can you ask for? We need to keep that going, keep that hot streak. When they come in bunches. CJ Stroud will make a few boneheaded throws. He will make a few throws or dirt some balls or airmail some passes. So can we take advantage of those opportunities? That can literally win us the game. And then for me, the ultimate key, my key of the game is interior D-line. Stop the run and push the inside of the pocket for CJ Stroud. Force him to have to leave that pocket early and have Josh and Trayvon get him on the edges. I think that's the key of the game. If they establish a run game with Nick Chubb and whoever else, whether it's Dameon Pierce or whoever else, if they establish a run game early, that just sets up so much for them. Play action passes, and when CJ Stroud has time and can diagnose a defense, he can be deadly accurate. So interior D-line is my key of the game for here. Now moving on to X factors, who on offensive defense are going to change the game. My offensive X factor this game is Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence, obviously every week he could be the X factor. If your quarterback plays well, you usually win the game. You know, Trev does seem like a pretty even keel guy, but does this game really mean more? You know, is he going to kind of rise above what he's been and, you know, take that emotion and lay it all on the line and really just give him a career game and get his revenge? I think Trevor Lawrence, if he's locked in, you know, I'm sure he knows how much the fans want this, how much the team wants this, how much he wants this. I think that could really energize him and kind of just give him a little bit push to play better than he's been. And then on the defensive side, I'm going to go Josh Hines-Allen. I think he's had a lot of pressures. He's been good weeks 1 and 2, played well. But I'm just looking forward to kind of seeing his name called a little bit more. See if he can actually get home and make a splash play. Maybe make a strip sack that ends up, you know, wrecking the game like he's being paid to be. I think the Jags can win this game if he makes just a few plays off the edge. I'm banking on our stars kind of showing up in this game. You know, the Bengals stars showed up last week to get the win. Chase, Higgins, Hendrickson, when they needed the most, they stepped up when Burrow went down. Meanwhile, the Jaguar stars didn't, and we lost because of it. This needs to change, and our stars and our leaders of the team really need to step up to kind of make a statement in this game and to really show out. My honest score prediction for this game, Jaguars win 24-10 over the Texans. And yes, this may be my biggest homer pick all of year. Yes, I'm emotional. Last year was rough, and I just want revenge for this one. Can we please just get one game where we blow out an opponent, and can it just be the Texans at home? That's all I'm asking for this year, actually. And obviously some competitive football in December. That's my prediction. Like I said, it's emotional, but I could see it happening, especially if the Jags defense really stymies this Texans offense. And also my prediction is that all these narratives that have been going on all week, they all get cleaned up this week. BTJ has his first big game. That connection with Trevor and BTJ goes off. Hunter makes a splash play. Maybe he doesn't win the game, but he makes a big play, whether that's offense or defense. And here's just a funny prediction for me. I'm going to say Liam Cohen and Trevor share a hug on the sideline during a big game-winning touchdown. They're going to get that CBS or that Fox, you know, camera right on that. It's going to be slow motion of them hugging, and that huge narrative that everyone's been talking about of their relationship. It's all going to be cleared up right after that. Is this wishful thinking? Yes, probably. But I think these narratives matter, and I think this game matters to Trevor, and I think this game matters a ton to the Jags. Can all this actually happen? You know, is this just wishful thinking? You know, I really think this actually can go this way. You know, if the defense just keeps getting better and better, making plays to put our offense in good positions to score, I think this can happen definitely. Liam Cohen's offense has looked really dominant the past 2 weeks, and though this defense is much better, you know, I think Cohen's going to use the Texans' defensive aggressiveness kind of against him and going to have a few awesome wrinkles to kind of put the Jags in a really good position. Now, obviously, I think I could be completely wrong. The Texans assert their dominance, that they're the better team this year, and, you know, end up squashing a lot of those hopes. And that could happen, and that's not the end of the world if that does, but I think this is kind of really important for the Jags, especially with an upcoming schedule, to really kind of get this win at home. Got to win your home games. Got to win your home games in the division if you want to be a competitive team. Now, really quick, I do want to rant a little bit about what's next for the Jaguars and kind of what their outlook after 3 games, after this game. I think if the Jags do pull this win off, I think this is a huge confidence booster. After that bad loss to the Bengals, where just who knows what happened, but we still lost that game somehow, even though they were the better team. I think Liam Cohen gets a huge boost of confidence from our fans, and remind us that this maybe isn't the same old Jags. I think we got a gauntlet coming up after this game. The Jags have tough games against the 49ers on the West Coast, which I don't think they're going to win. And I don't care if the Chiefs are 0-4 coming into Monday night. I don't think we're ready for that level of team greatness and maturity to win, even if it's at home. And the Seahawks are a lot better than people think. I think that could be a really tough game. And then after that, the Rams in London. I don't care if it's in London. The Rams are real. They're a great team. Lose this game and fall to 1-2, and things could spiral out pretty quickly. I'm not going to say that they're not going to be a competitive team, but we could look up and the record is 2-5. We're kind of out of it already, but the team still looks good. I don't know how to really explain that, but I think that's when you have a new start, a new coach, you just have growing pains. You got to learn how to win again after last few years. So a lot of scar tissue with this team. I think Liam Cohen needs to kind of bring that out. I've really seen something different in this team. I think the talent and coaching is just different. And though we may not win a bunch of games this year, I do think they're just going to fight their tails off. Maybe we don't win a few games early on, but I think towards the middle and end, I really think we might get a few games maybe we didn't expect from early on and end up actually with a pretty decent record. But my message to the fans is just to be patient. We're not winning the Super Bowl this year. I don't think anyone's expecting that. And this season's about answering questions. One of those questions is just that I think has been answered is the toughness of this team. The play calling and the coaching of Liam Cohen so far has been awesome. Really excited about that. And, all off season and all early this year, I've been saying I'll believe it when I see it. And so far, I've seen a lot of good that I'm excited about. So far, my season prediction stands. Jags are 1-1. I think the Jags will battle and fight, compete for a playoff spot. But then I'm really excited for 2026 and beyond, especially with the new stadium coming up. So that's my prediction. Jaguars 24, Texans 10. Jaguars will go into 2-1 and bury the Houston Texans. And that's my preview for the biggest game of the season. I'm pumped for this week, and I just can't wait to come out with more content. Can't wait to see what happens. Obviously, I'll be doing my post-game show right after the game. Try to get that out usually around like 6:37. And I also do a lot more content with Jag stuff throughout the week, like this show. I'll do some analysis videos sometimes. I also come out with home bartending stuff in Japanese language, culture, and travel. I do a lot of that stuff as well. But let me know in the comments, what's your prediction for this Jags-Texans game, and what do you want to see this week? Stay tuned for more Jags Japan content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.